I've been doing a lot of projects on Capella in the last week since I've gotten home, so I figured I would share my inspiration for why I've chosen these particular projects to do. That involves my travel plans. I really enjoyed being out of sight of land, and I'd like to do some more of that. I was looking at going to Central America. I got out Navionics and started plotting kind of a course. Did a little bit of interneting on what the best way to go about it is. I'm just not that interested in going to the Bahamas. It just hasn't been my plan. For the last year, I've been wanting to go, down this way. Originally planned on, packing a backpack and flying. But why pass up a wonderful opportunity to complicate my life? Instead of buying a plane ticket, I learned how to sail and bought a boat. And now I'm outfitting the boat for a little voyage. I can talk more about my travel plans a little later in the podcast. But anyways, taking Capella out across the Gulf like that, definitely making some upgrades to the safety features of the boat. That might be a topic for a YouTube video possibly once I've kind of completed all that. I'm also doing a solar array and a little bit more house battery. I got a lithium ion 200 amp hour battery for the house. What I'm trying to do is I want to make cooking easy. Cooking on gas is great and everything, but I have some kitchen appliances to make it probably a little easier to deal with that are electric. So I wanted to be sure and have, or at least try to have enough power on board, using an inverter to, power some of my little kitchen appliances and kind of negate the need for propane. So the electrical is probably the biggest project. It's the project. Everything else I'm doing around the electrical. But I did need to seal all the leaks. The hatches were leaking, so that inspired the rebuilding of the hatches. You can kind of see some of this if you want to watch the YouTube video, the boat tour on YouTube. The hatches were disgusting and they were leaking. Redoing those. Hopefully they won't leak when I'm done. Completely redoing the weather strip seal. Most of the port lights were watertight. One that I think had been sealed up in the past had started leaking again, so I went ahead and pulled it open. I pulled them all open, cleaned off all the extra goo, and I'm just going to seal them as I see the need, or maybe they can be fixed somehow, but I haven't gotten that far yet. Other things I needed to do to make it comfortable, on a voyage, was also more refrigeration, which is kind of part of the electrical because that takes, I think it runs at like 45 watt when it's running. Really happy with it so far. It's just sitting on the bed. It's a Renogy freezer fridge. So I've got ice cream. Well, I had ice cream. I just ate it before doing this sorbet. Just making sure I have enough power to run that. That's exciting. I mean, even as I'm looking at my whiteboard here, I don't really have a whole lot of other stuff. I've got to fix the steaming light and get the wind chicken mounted up the mast, which is, if you're watching the video podcast on YouTube, that is what you're watching me do. I took 3 trips up the mast, I only have one, to try to put this wind chicken up. The first time, I was pretty much just trying out my climbing gear. I'm not a rock climber or anything of the sort, but I watched a video on YouTube. I'll link to the video if I remember. I bought the stuff this gal said to buy, and it was all the stuff she was using in the video, and she, I guess, made it up and back down. So it seemed like a great idea. I tried it out. I don't remember her pulling up a climbing rope, but I'm not going to watch the video again. But I pulled up a climbing rope first because I don't think the halyards are made for climbing with this kind of stuff. It's got to tear them up. So I'd rather tear up a cheap climbing rope it's cheap, but it's a good rope, 10 mil, than tear up one of my halyards or potentially break my halyard and create a problem. That would certainly suck. Then I would end up falling. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. I didn't mind climbing it 3 times. I kind of wished that 3rd time that I was able to mount the actual wind chicken at the top of the mast, and it turns out I need to do some kind of bracket, and I guess try again tomorrow if the weather's decent. But really, it's fun. I like doing it, so it's not a problem. It is a lot of work. The view's great. Totally got to look down because that's the fun part. And sometimes people walk by and are like, hey, there's a guy up. Hi, guy. And I'm like, hi, just hanging out. So anyways, I enjoyed going up there, but it is work. I've also got to fix the steaming light. My plan there is to replace the steaming light with a new one. That sounds dirty too. And maybe it'll work. I don't know where the switch for it is. There's a couple of just crap switches sort of mounted. It's, I don't know. That part will be done, and I'll get to see what kind of shenanigans are going on with the wiring behind it. And And then maybe eventually, just in my free time, I'll be able to find the other end of that lead and see how I can't possibly make it work. Baby steps. Not everything has to get finished right now. I really just want to get this show on the road. I don't really have a deadline or anything like that, but I just got a fire lit under my ass. I'm ready to get out there and go see some shit. You know, I want to get some sailing in before I got to go back to the island of misfit toys and work for however many months. So in order to do that, I need to quit screwing around so much with mood lighting and move on to real things like solar panels. It's like waiting on paint to dry because it is waiting on paint to dry or varnish or something. Every day I paint some. I don't hate painting. I don't like it. I've had the same paintbrushes for a long time. By a long time, I mean, years. And I've just always end up painting stuff. And I fell into this stupid trap of, I know the value of a brush. I don't skimp on brushes. I buy the best. You got the good, better, best. And I buy the best. And I take care of them and I clean them. And, I'm really spoiled in the age of like latex and water-based everything, where I have lost the appreciation for how to clean a brush that's been in other kinds of things. So the trap I fell into was I started buying those disposable $something brushes, the ones you don't clean, and using those. And the little voice said, you're better than this. You can do a better job than this. You lazy son of a bitch. Go get your good brush and then clean it like a man when you're done painting. And I didn't listen to the little voice. Instead, I bought little disposable brushes and made more work for myself like a little girl. That's a bit much. But I did make more work for myself. I think a little girl would have been smarter. It just left big brushy, streaky brush marks on everything. And once I slowed down enough to see what I had done, well, I stopped. I went home, took a lunch break, and came back with my good brush and some paint thinner and got down to painting still by hand, but with a good brush. I had to sand everything I had done already. I needed to sand it anyways. I just had to sand it a little bit more, sand out the old brush strokes. I don't mind some brush strokes, but this looked like somebody painted shredded wheat. Like, it just didn't look good. Forget orange peel. This was something completely different. This was gross. So I sanded it down and then I painted my second coat by hand with a good brush. And then I cleaned my good brush in paint thinner, and I'm so thorough that I rinsed it and rinsed it and rinsed it, and then I left it in some paint thinner because I don't really know what the next step is. I guess soap and water, but I'm gonna paint with it again soon. So if it's got a little blue in it, it's not gonna kill anybody. Lesson I learned was use a good brush. Be prepared to clean a good brush, but use a good brush. And I think this will translate into some of the problems I'm having. The paddle boards trying to brush on the epoxy is just not working because I'm using a crap brush. So I end up using a squeegee, and I don't know. I hope I didn't ruin it because this is a really pretty paddle board. It's not in this video or it's not in any of the videos I've done yet. That's another thing I've got to finish before I get rolling. And that is also more waiting on paint to dry, as I've been building 2 wooden paddle boards out of cypress in my garage. It's not my garage, but I've been using it. And they turned out really pretty, and one of them is my favorite. And I usually do everything second on my favorite one, but I started getting excited about my favorite one, so I fiberglassed it first. And the little voice said, don't do that. Fiberglass the other one first because you don't give a shit how it turns out. I didn't listen, so I wanted to see the artwork, and I kind of fucked myself a little bit. I think it's still going to work out well and be pretty. Really, the matter of fact is that it will probably look its worst when it's new. I think after it rides around hanging off the lifelines of my boat for a while, I'm going to put a cover on it, but it's outside the lifelines on the ocean. Like, it's gonna get beat to shit. Like, once they're weathered in or have some patina on them, I think they're gonna look rat and like antique-y. While they're new, they might look like somebody who didn't really know what they were doing built them. And that's not far from the truth. All they gotta do is float. And right now, they don't even do that. This boat does, and I'd like to keep it that way. Fix the bilge switch twice. Third time's a charm. We're not there yet. Oh God, it's just so hard to find things that are interesting to talk about, or that would be interesting for anybody else to listen to me talk about on weeks when I don't get to sail. I'm not really whining about it. My own doing, I sort of stacked these projects to try and get them done so I can just be finished, with the big stuff. And in doing that, I made it so I couldn't take my boat out for a couple weeks But I can think of worse things. God, she is really starting to look good. I'm glad I put the time into cleaning her this afternoon. I started loading up to go to the house, took the trash out, and I looked around to see if there was anything extra cluttering up the place that just wasn't going to be on the boat, just didn't belong here. And I found, mostly more trash. And then I got up on deck and just tripped over everything trying to get off the boat. And I'm like, this is not the kind of show I'm running here. So I tidied up all the lines. I hung a bunch of the lines above the deck in my stack pack, lazy bag, whatever you want to call it. And boy, would pockets be awesome on the mast side of the stack pack. It just looks so much nicer. I don't even know why I have a boom bang rig, and the rigging looks like shit on it anyways. I don't really use the boom bang on this. Yeah, some pockets on the stack pack would be awesome. And so I got the deck all cleaned off and folded up the tarp. I had to run home and grab a broom. I didn't want to wash it because of the big holes in the deck. Got a broom, swept it off this evening, and then swept down below. Tidied up some tools, consolidated things. I mean, it's still a bit cluttered. It just has to be. I've got to be able to get to the places where the wiring is happening, and I'm waiting on wire and other things. So it's livable. There's somewhere to sit. I'm recording this below decks right now, editing the video or whatever. I edited the video on my new little desk area that I built. I had some video of that, but I ended up just showing the mast climbing. I thought it was kind of neat. And the questions I get asked by people, and by people I mean like two people maybe, usually has to do with the heights. Like, oh my God, that's so far up there, or that looks scary. And like, well, it's 30, I think it's 36 feet off the water. It doesn't sound right, but it kind of looks right. And so yeah, that's far enough up to do some damage. It's not 50 feet. There's so much other stuff going on, like, for example, the giant pile of like webbing and rope and devices that's right in front of me that I'm using to climb this thing. Is such a distraction. It's not a matter of don't look down. Like, I have to remember to look down and enjoy where I'm at and look around. I'll get to the top and then rappel down to the bottom and then realize I didn't look around when I was up top, and I've got the camera footage to prove it. I just get a little task focused, I guess. I just copied what somebody else did and in their video, and just bought the same stuff she had and did what she did. And it's taking a little practice to look like an old pro doing it, but I feel like I'm making headway. I trust the gear. I've got a safety system using the main halyard with a knot. I can't remember what the knot's called, but it's a safety knot, follower. Pretty much the climbing rope would have to either fail, which I don't see that happening. My knot would have to fail, that's not happening, or something on the spinnaker halyard would have to fail. And I think everything's in pretty good shape. Spinnaker's not really my favorite halyard to use, but it'll do. I'd kind of like to re-rig that now that I'm thinking about it. But anyway, yeah, I've got a safety line following on the main halyard, so if everything goes to shit, there's still something that can catch me and hang on. And of course, I'll still have I'll have my gree-gree, so I can still belay down that halyard, although I did just now realize there is a flaw in that plan. And I will tell you what that is. If the other line completely dumped and I was just hanging by the safety, which is a scary thought, but it would work, I could use the safety knot as a belay device, kinda, but the best thing to do would be able to slide the gree-gree onto the main halyard and belay myself down, rappel down, whatever you want to call it. But I just realized that I have the main halyard pulled tight so that it doesn't fight me on the when I slide up the safety knot, that I would not be able to bite off the extra probably 6 feet that I would need to run it through the gree-gree. Probably more than that, maybe 8 feet to run it through the gree-gree and be able to make the loop at least 4 or 5 feet. Like, I guess I don't really have to hang on to it. I'm not pulling myself back up. Okay, so that is a change that I need to make. I'm glad I talked myself through it. Thank you for listening. If anybody's sailed this route before, Fort Walton Beach to Belize, and wants to give me some tips or, warnings, feel free to leave it in the comments.